this morning I had the chance to do training on implicit bias and trying to work with equity goals during school stuff. And I think, the question is that sometimes, right, like there are the things that are explicit, like the racial and structural inequality and racism. And then there are those biases that come from our awareness of different cultural differences, right? So like sometimes they can be class-based or they can be location-based. And I think that we don't talk about the biases, because even when we talk about youth of color, which a term that we use, typically people's lenses go to a certain kind of youth of color, not the alphabet soup that we are, right? And I think maybe his question was, how do we also talk about some of the alphabet soup, like that we don't look at nuance and difference, because all youth of color aren't the same, all aren't, even urban, right? Even urban youth, I'm amazed at, right, the complexity and the diversity in which we see, and how is it that we also talk about those cultural variations in the ways that people are showing up.
Well, to that point, specifically when we talk about youth, there's so many advantages to youth. It's, in a sense, it's us as the adults that the older we get, the more we learn to mess stuff up. But when we talk about things like culture and even race, take a group of children and put them in a room, and they're able to appreciate each other just for being children. I can think of an example, a really good friend of mine who is an African-American male. One of his young sons, he went to pick him up from school, and his son got in the car and was describing a friend of his. And so my friend said, "Oh, you mean the black kid?" To which his son was like, "What are you talking about? He's not wearing a black shirt," and he points to somebody else. And so just even this idea that race is a very real thing, it's also a very real thing because we make it such a real thing. And I think, especially when it comes to things like mental health, and especially when we're talking about youth, where they're able to recognize, like, hey, regardless of our similarities or differences, young people can figure out pretty quick, if people are being real with them or if they're being fake. And young people can figure out really quick, okay, this person is talking to me because they are genuinely interested in me and they genuinely want to help me. And oftentimes that person may or may not look like them. But the young person is able to figure out really quick, like, okay, this is somebody I can trust. This is somebody I can confide in. Again, just to specifically brag on Meghan a little bit, I've worked with Meghan over the last year doing supervision for her LCSW, and the same thing with Tisha and Shantel in the past. When the idea of Here For You came up, the reason I specifically went to Meghan is because it's like, hey, the young people that we're looking to serve in Here For You, I know firsthand that these are young people who she is already devoting her time and energy to working with. And so again, when we look at mental health support, it's one of those areas where a lot of the things that we're dealing with in regards to our mental health are the results of internal things that are definitely impacted by external factors. And if we can get to that point where we can help people understand, like, hey, let me take the time to build that relationship with you and try to support you based on who you are on the inside and based on the similarities of who I am on the inside as well. And then all the external stuff, let's figure out how to use that to help add to the process rather than necessarily having to define the process.
So I'm going to create space for Shantel, but I want to say two things, because one, I want to, not Shantel, I'm going to bring you into the conversation, and Meghan, you too. But I do want to say, and I don't think we mentioned where you work, Meghan, but we were at a vigil. So what James is saying is so true. We were at a vigil. And one of the things that made me believe that Here For You was going to work was we had a couple of people from the network. We had 3 or 4 people out from the network, and it was like a recruitment thing. Like, people were like, "Can I go to the school that you're working at?" And I was like, how somebody is legit and cool and also good and meaning is that kids are like, now what's the transfer process? Like, you could just see people, like, it was it was the most moving and touching experience that I ever had, where people were like, I know I need support and I need to be where my support is. And imagine if we lived in a community where folks could get the support that they needed, right? And you could just see the hunger for kids to connect and engage with the Here For You people who were out there. So I want to just sort of give a plug. Yay, we got another person. I want to give a plug for that. The other thing that I want to say, and then I'm going to let Gabby introduce herself, is that the other thing about the cultural lens is something that Meghan was hinting at the beginning, is that we miss the diversity in ways that mental health shows up in kids of color. Like sometimes we only look for certain kinds of externalizing, and that's a technical word, and I know people can chime in, but we only look for like fighting or aggression or cussing, and we don't look for crying or sadness or vulnerability or worry or eating problems or any of those things, nor do we say that that's Black, right? Like, or people of color. Like we sort of make people of color like this limited box, particularly our youth. And what I've noticed from my journey is youth of color come with so many different needs that we don't make space for. And then people go, well, where do I fit? And who do I talk to? And am I not like this or that? And even at the detention center, like the range of interest, experience, and ability that people show up at, that instead we put those kids into boxes and think like they're all the same, and there's nothing, you're right, like they're so different in terms of information and interest and ability. And I just wish we could give more room to them. So speak up, Gabby, can you introduce yourself to us?
Hey, sorry, I was muted. How are you guys doing?
We're well. So introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about why you joined Here For You.
So a little bit about me. I'm a licensed clinical social worker. And the reason why I joined Here For You is because I'm just really passionate about our youth, our community. I've been working with individuals in the community for about 5 years now, through different avenues, work in the field and helping individuals who are struggling with addictions, helping families and things like that. So that's one of my passions. And so being able to participate in Here For You was something that was definitely on my radar and up my alley. So I'm glad that I've been able to, engage and join and do things thus far with you guys.
Thank you. Thank you. So before we shift gears, Shantel, Meghan, do you guys want to add anything to my rant? So I apologize for going.
I don't think I have anything like super specific to say, but I echo what you guys are saying, and thank you for your compliments and kind words. But I think you start out a lot of times like I did, wanting to, you get the white savior thing going on. You want to get in there and just, I'm gonna be superwoman and come in here and help everybody. But you find out pretty quickly that that's not really how it works. And so building up relationships and building that trust, and I think the cultural lens is so important because, I recently wrote a letter and included a lot of the things that I see, which includes teens just being so disengaged and hurt by the time they reach those teenage years, by a lot of the education system, things in the community, and for us to not recognize that as the adults who have more power and control over what these systems look like, is just a total disservice to our Black and Brown community. To at least face that this harm has happened, and then look at ways that changes can be made. But cultural competency is just a huge part of finding a therapist and a mental health provider.
Thank you. So I'm going to shift because you guys have mentioned in the beginning that you are non-traditional and that wanted to offer some non-traditional support. So I will share like a little bit of what you have done, and then I'm going to let you chime in about what you right? Like there were some questions I know James had and Meghan and everybody had around like that you wanted to ask the audience about, like, hey, if Here For You existed, what would that look like? But I'm going to tell you a little bit of what they've done so far. So have, again, been available to support people in the community. So attending community events, attending sort of vigils around people who were lost, have been available to provide some wraparound individual supports to people who need them, have been listening ears, so and can help people get connected to resources and support as needed. So that's what they've done so far. Oh, how could I forget? One of the things that happened when COVID happened was we started some grit groups, and we want to definitely talk about that. We realized that we think we probably should have rebranded it, because I think most people thought grit meant like pull yourself up by your bootstraps and not like we're working with you. So we started some wellness and recovery groups, really focused on like whole people stuff, not just sort of mental healthy stuff. So very trauma informed, and for men, for young girls, for moms, for essential workers. I'm making sure I got the whole thing, and we'll be open and receptive to creating more of those kind of opportunities. So that's what you've done. Tell me anything I miss, or because I probably missed something. I mentioned Ava's art projects in the beginning. What else have I missed?
Well, I would say one of the biggest things, and this goes back to the original discussion that you and I had, Karen, is, and even the way we all came up with the name Here For You. So for those of you who have seen the spelling of it, it's spelled H-E-A-R. So it's not because we don't know how to spell. That was intentional. Like we're saying, again, we're not necessarily quote unquote the experts. We're here to provide the support. And a lot of times, when individuals are hurting, who better to tell you how they're hurting than the individual themselves? And so a big part of what we've been working on over the last year and still are working on, and are definitely open to any suggestions anybody in the audience has, is we don't want to keep trying to do what makes sense to us as the service providers. Because again, we've been doing that, and we'll schedule, and when I say we, I'm talking about our community as a whole. We'll schedule events that people don't show up to. We'll have, we'll fund programs with different grants and stuff, and not have participants. So a big part of what we would like to continue doing is really meeting the community, the young people that we want to serve where they're at, and build that relationship, and hopefully build that trust where they can tell us like, hey, this is how I want to be supported. So a lot of what we're doing right now is, as we're paying attention to different things that are going on in the community, we're looking to say, like, hey, everybody out in Here For You, and Karen and Samira do a really great job of letting us know, hey, this happened, this is going on. And it's almost like, shining the bat signal, where it's like, okay, now that we all know what's going on, who's available to be out there? And a lot of times, not necessarily be out there to do anything, but to be out there to support, and look to see how we can serve and help people out.
Other folks want to share, because you're brilliant. So other wishes.
I'd love to see more of that, just the name to get out there, and the support that we can provide to be out there. And I'd like it to be the norm that we're, at community events, at funerals for young people, or vigils, and they know that, and they can count on that to be a support. But also something that we were wanting to do, and maybe you left it out because maybe we're not going to do it.
No, we're going to do it. Just go ahead and say it. I probably forgot. Remember, it's afternoon. Fuck.
Support at juvenile detention center, and even following, when a youth is leaving detention center, that they would have support and be able to reconnect to their community, and have somebody to just check in. Even to just have somebody check in can sometimes be a lifesaver. So, but I would love for it to just be the norm that the Here For You team is there, whenever there's something going on.
Yeah. So no, I did not intentionally leave that out. It's just with COVID, it's hard to know when we'll be back in the detention center. But probation, know that here for you is here for you. Double entendre, right? Like, so if you're a young person, and I didn't mention this, but just in case, young people is defined 14, I'm gonna get this wrong, 14 to 20, help me, 26 is the continuum of young people need. So, right, so we're thinking, again, young people, but a couple of people who are working with us really love young adults. So no, if you are young adult, navigating adultism, we've got support who want to reach out to you. I think that a couple people on the call I know or have that gift. Other things that you'd want to add? I think there's a question that came in. Let me put my glasses on. I can't find, okay. Okay, so another question happened. So the question was, if face-to-face ever happens, do we think like things like therapeutic massage would be welcome, or any of those kind of modalities in terms of helping with self-awareness and self-care? How do we feel about, again, holistic modalities?
I mean, I would say I think that goes back to the idea of for us as a community to offer the best support, it has to be based on what the people receiving the support want. And so I absolutely could envision something where it's like, if there's an event, we should have I mean, this is a rich community in the sense of service and skill sets and things like that. And even when we talk about mental health, some of the conversations that we've had is, and specifically within the minority community, mental health could be going to a pastor or a deacon or something like that. And so the idea that, when we have these different events in the community, the more options that we have available that the community themselves can choose from and say, you know what, yes, that is something that I need right now. I do need a massage, or I do need play therapy, or I just need somebody to, sit and listen. So I think that's absolutely an option, as long as we go in with the mindset of, hey, we're making things available, not based on what we want, but based on what the community that we're trying to serve wants.
Yeah. So what did I miss? Because I don't want to keep going to questions. If Shantel, Gabby, Megan, you have something to offer or ask or wish that you have in terms of like why you got involved, but what you would want the community to know about Here For You and the kind of support you want to offer. All right, I'm not going to keep pushing. So linked to what James said, the other thing that I really love about the work that you are doing in terms of how we see people is that we see people as whole. And so we're not just thinking like classical talky kind of thing. Our Here For You is open to, like, again, as James said, like to a whole bunch of like expressive therapies or walking or group support, or sometimes no one is ready to talk about mental health, quote, air quote, but they are wanting to reduce stress or feel better or have more connected relationships. I've been thinking a lot, Megan, just because of a couple of the young people that we know, that we could probably do a whole group around dating, right? Like, and people don't realize that if you get your relationship stuff in order, it helps you with your own, sense of wellness. And we're that kind of group, right? You guys are that kind of group where you really want, not everybody's ready to come and talk about, how they feel about the loss of a cousin or an uncle, but they can't think about talking about their fights with their mom, and which are frequently tied to the conversations about their grief and loss. They just don't know it. And it's okay, but in terms of support that way. So what I just went on and on, but do you have any other comments to add about the kinds of supports that you can offer?
Go ahead, Meg. So I just was going to add, I've also, and I've tried to incorporate this into my personal life and as it relates to my family as well, but um, I feel like I have the gift to be able to mentor young moms, young women. And so um, I would like to see um, more like a, not necessarily, I guess you can call it like a big sister, big brother type of thing, mentorship. I remember having a mentor when I was in middle school, but after middle school, there was no more. Like my mentor didn't follow me to high school during the most important years of my life, you know, when a lot of my own personal struggles came about. And I feel like, you know, somewhere along the way, a mentor should somehow be assigned to these lost souls or lost children to be able to help them along the way through life's journey. And just because sometimes they may not necessarily want to talk to people in their family, you know, they may feel judged or for whatever reason just don't want to gain that support from someone in their family. So just having an outside person to be able to provide that mentorship, I think will also be beneficial.
And then piggybacking off of that, Shantel, I think that is super important to like incorporate families in that. So, you know, we can be there and we can mentor. And I think it's super important to have like that accountability piece, because we won't be there 24/7. We'll be there.
Right.
But I think also educating and strengthening families and equipping families to continue to hold individuals accountable when it comes to the different things that we're helping them with, or that we've identified as strengths in them, just helping reinforce that. So that's something that I would like to see personally, is just that family component, and then, you know, making them feel equipped all around.
So Shantel and Gabby are great leads. So one of the things, so there are 3 things that we know right now in this moment we have the capacity to provide that they sort of stepped up, right? So we are listening to help figure out, like, if you are somebody experiencing grief or loss, or want to have people who can provide mental health support at an event, invite us. And I'll make sure the phone number exists, but it's 417-3750. And you'll get it at the end of this, but 417-3750. We can also help. We don't have unlimited capacity, so it's sort of first come, first serve, but to provide wraparound services. And people throw that term around, and Meghan will tell you the way that we do wraparound is very different than you've ever seen it. We really do bring a village of people, including like supports that love on and guide you and work with you to help you and your family get to the next level. So it's a full press loving where people sort of coach and walk alongside you. So if you had heard a wraparound before and it felt like bureaucratic, that's not how we do. We really like, and so if you're a young person, particularly a young person sort of navigating your way and could use a little bit of loving, people like Shantel and Meghan and Gabby want to help you move forward, particularly if you've been stuck. The last thing that I want to say that you guys have agreed to offer, because you are brilliant experts. I can't brag on you enough. Not that I have any credit for what you've done, because you were simply amazing. James has just happened to put you all in my life. Is that if are you running a program or designing a program or doing something, and you could use some eyes to help, like maybe there are youth with mental health needs and you don't know what to do or don't know how to respond. So both helping on that level, on the individual level, but also if you are trying to think about, like, how do you add more meaningful activities or supportive activities, or how to make it much more healing and wellness, use their expertise. There is wisdom of people who can just kind of slip by. Now that we're virtual, right, they can come by, but if you're doing things in a park, they want to be a resource that you can go to for help. What am I, Shantel? Yes. So we have.
Did I push?
Yeah, it's okay. No, I just wanted to be sure. Like, so did I miss anything? Because this is the team that's supposed to make sure that I don't forget anything. Did I miss anything?
Well, I would just add a couple things. I think one of the other visions that we have with Here for You is, number one, just from a timing standpoint, again, I think what we hope makes us different than everybody else is part of us providing service for the community is we go to you. So we're not telling you to come to our office. We do not have traditional hours. This is not like a 9 to 5 thing. You have scheduled appointments. Like, no, the phone is going to be huge once we really get that going, because it's like literally, and Karen and everybody helped design bracelets that we're going to be passing out. So it's sort of like 24-hour access. Give us a call. Doesn't necessarily mean we're going to be able to, come out at that exact moment. But the idea is that we've got a network of people who are saying, okay, well, hey, I am available Friday night at 9 o'clock to meet with this family or meet with this young person or whatever it may be. And no paperwork. That's the other nice thing. Like, don't worry about a whole bunch of paperwork and releases and stuff like that. Like, this is not that.
So if you, right, so this is going to be Karen. So if you were going to say one thing, so if you write like the commercial to the community, but also if somebody is like sitting on their couch and they're like, why didn't I know about the Here For You network? What could you say to encourage? We've got like just a few minutes. So if you have a message for people who are sitting on their couch going, I should be able to do help too, what would be the ask for them? About getting involved?
I think if you have something that you think you can offer, ask. And then I think on the other side of that, something that I failed to mention is parenting teenagers and young adults is incredibly hard. I think we think that whenever they're little, oh, they're cute, but they're so draining and it's like exhausting and can't wait till they're grown up. And then like all the things come like crumbling down when they're teens and young adults. And we can support that. And so I think please utilize, if you're just really struggling, we can at least give some ideas.
Other idea. And this group is so well trained, before, not just me, but they have a love of learning. They pursue like their own learning. So nobody's just sort of making up stuff. Like, this is people using the best practices and sort of sharing, doing the work for you, making your load easier. Shantel, you were going to say?
No, I'm good.
Okay. Gabrielle, did you want to add anything? Because we've got like 1 minute. Do you have any closing thoughts? I don't think so. All right. James, do you have closing thoughts for us?
No, just we are excited about this opportunity. Again, all of us, we love the Champaign-Urbana community, and there's a lot of great stuff going on in this community. There's also a lot of work that needs to be done, and we're all just excited to be a part of the process.
So you'll start seeing them out and about in the community, little bracelets with a phone number that is Here For You. And again, James said we did not make a mistake when we called it like here. We want to make sure that that it's communicated that this group is here for you. And thank you so much for spending some time with us. And Shantel, Gabby, James, and Meghan, I am forever in your debt, and the community needs and has been waiting for you, and you've been showing up already. And then everybody else who couldn't join us, we wish you well. Stay well, and until next time, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.